Hey there, folks. I am super excited to have Marty Hofmann on. He is an entrepreneur, multi six-figure business owner who invests in real estate, but also has a really clear message to kill complacency and really live a meaningful and purposeful life. So listen in. You're not going to want to miss this one. Enjoy. There's a moment in life when we sense an opening, where the life we've built begins inviting us into something more. Not because anything's wrong, but because we're ready for a deeper, truer expression of who we really are. This is the Lit Up Life podcast, conversations for those who are no longer interested in pushing, proving, or performing, and are ready to lead from truth, alignment, and inner authority. I'm Debbie Heiser, and here we talk about the inner shifts that change everything, how belief, identity, and energetic leadership shape the way you live, work, and choose. This isn't about becoming someone new, it's about coming home to who you already are. Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Lit Up Life with Debbie Heiser. I am Debbie Heiser, your host, and I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you for listening in. And as you know, we're all about how are we leading our lit up lives, and if we can then make some currency at it because we live in this 3D world and have to pay for things, then all the better for that, right? So I have a guest here, and Marty and I just met, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. But already the conversation that we were having before we got on was rich, and I was struggling not to ask a lot of questions to already get into content that I wanted for all of you to see and hear. So, Marty, take it away. Introduce yourself. Tell us how you show up in service to the world, and then we'll just take it from there.
Sure. So Debbie, thank you for letting me be on. It's a privilege. You and I also talked about we were both from Iowa. That's where I was born, and I'm one of 9 siblings. I grew up as a farm kid, so we knew about work. Um, I went to a Bible college for college, kind of to get away, kind of to push the reset button. A lot of college age kids just don't know what they want, and so it was a good opportunity. And so I did that. And from that, I met my wife. So it was good to get grounded. And I became a youth pastor and I lived in northern Montana for 8 years.
Okay, I
And
have to tell you, there are so many parallels, and then I'm going to let you get back to your story. But when I was an executive at Citibank, that didn't feed my soul. Like, I loved working with the people and leading the people, but I was a volunteer youth pastor at a Methodist church for
okay,
9 years. Because my son, I wanted to keep him in the spiritual formation part, but that's what really fed my soul. And I volunteered because when people start paying your salary, they have different expectations. So we have so many parallels. It's
it
really
is.
interesting. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I appreciate you saying that because that was one reason I stepped back from the youth pastorate was because I got tired of being a professional Christian,
Yeah.
meaning it was a paid position and people had expectations. So
Yeah.
we had our first 3 kids in Malta, Montana, and I love my time up there. I don't want to think anything
Yeah.
else. Like
Yeah.
I loved it. But we stepped back kind of because of the questioning the professional Christian thing and moved to Oklahoma. My wife is from Oklahoma and her dad had cancer. That was 2010. And entrepreneur my whole life. Maybe didn't always see it, but definitely always there. And moved back and I started shearing alpacas. It was a new thing at the time. Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't see that coming, but it was, and I still do it honestly. But it's a niche and it was a way to make a lot of fast cash. And so I actually did that for several years where I'd work for about 3 months of the year and then I would spend the rest of the time at home. But from that, I got bored. So I got into real estate and I knew I was an entrepreneur. I knew I wouldn't have that 401k. So I thought
Yeah.
the only other way to get mailbox money is from tenants. So I got into real estate and built a pretty big portfolio up. And kind of as a result of that, I said, if I can do this, a farm kid from Iowa, then anyone can do it. So we started the podcast Kill Complacency, which is really, I mean, that's the hook, but it's really all about being intentional and the compound effect of intentionality and what it can get you in the long haul as opposed to complacency and drift. And so I've just written a book. It's about to be launched and I have the podcast and we're just really I'm still trying to do everything because I'm an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to just give back to the world and let the world be better because they can be if they'll lean into intentionality.
Absolutely. And I'm going to back up for a second because part of my reaction, I can't hold, I'm really bad. I use my inside voice on my face a lot of times. Is we have this huge alpaca farm here and I'm a semi-quasi, my sister tried to get me to start a business taking photos because I used to take a lot of photos. And I wanted to go out and just sit in a chair and have these alpacas come up to me because they all look different.
Yeah.
Like their faces and they're so expressive. I didn't want to get spit on, but anyway, so that's really funny that you still do that.
Still do that. Yeah, 'tis the
Yeah,
season. I mean, right now it's between hot and cold.
right.
So, and it's honestly something I continue to do because I can do it with my boys. That's a big
Yeah,
part of, I try to do entrepreneurship with my family. So there's lots of things I can teach them that I can't teach them any other way. Work ethic, talking to
yeah.
customers. I actually have them do the invoicing.
Oh,
Um,
that's great.
so they get to learn like what happens when customers aren't happy or whatever, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, that's fantastic. That's so fun to hear. So tell me, let's go back to this. So you grew up in Iowa, you moved to Oklahoma, you got into real estate. Now, why I get real estate too, because as you and I talked a little bit, I'm getting ready to invest a little bit more into real estate. And so what, like, why there? Like, tell us a little more about the context of what brought you to that, other than you can turn things around, then you have money working for you instead of you working for money. But tell us a little bit more about that and why real estate? Why is real estate a good investment?
it's a good investment because you can leverage it with someone else's money.
Hmm.
So you can get a loan on it. It's
Which means
also a good,
debt is not always bad.
yes, and I should go back a little bit. I grew up very Dave Ramsey,
Hmm.
where debt was bad,
Hmm.
and I read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that completely was a mindset shift.
Yeah.
So, um, my first house I actually bought, it was a duplex. It was in Guthrie. It was 2012, bottom of the market here, and it was a piece of junk. And the one reason I bought it, Debbie, was I knew I was handy and I could figure things out, and so it was a project, and I wanted that. I still have that house. I mean, it's a credible asset at this point. And what we did is we actually did that all Dave Ramsey style, debt free.
Yeah.
And then I leveraged that. I got a line of credit and I just started doing all these other houses with that line of credit. So that first house was my seed money.
Okay.
Um, and then we've just rinse and repeat all these other houses.
Oh, that's so fantastic. And so when I think about like getting into real estate and like to me, real estate, I remember living through in the banking industry, the mortgage crisis, right? So there are times that there's a little bit of a cycle, and we saw it boom after COVID, and now it's kind of in our area anyway, settling a little bit because we had a lot of people move from the West Coast here because Idaho was fairly open and they also could work remote, right? So they moved here. But when I think about real estate, it does feel like a pretty solid move. And the reason I'm going here is I'm kind of getting to a little hook here with you. In the realm of real estate, to me feels very mindful and very intentional, right? Like you don't just go out and buy a house to buy a house. You're intentional about what you're looking for, what you want, and you're very much about life purpose, very much about this mindfulness and intentionality. So when did you first start to say, "Hey, I want to lead an intentional life"?
I don't, I don't know if I ever planted my flag. I
Yeah.
think there's definitely been times where I realized I was complacent and things needed to change. But as far as intentionality, that probably didn't come maybe till 4 or 5 years ago. But it was a result of seeing what living it out looked like.
Yeah.
And it was a result of maybe some wake up calls. Maybe a doctor visit.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say maybe a doctor visit, a hard talk with my wife. Like she wanted to leave me at one point because I wasn't intentional there. I was providing but not present. Um, so that's what I would say. I would say it's probably more, Debbie, been about wake up call moments and realizing I've got to get my stuff together because this complacency, this drift I'm in, is not going to result in the legacy I want. And
Yeah.
so, as you see that and you see the compound effect of intentionality, you just start leaning into it and you start realizing this is harder, but it's good. And so, we're going to do this.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit. So define what you mean when you say complacency.
Complacency isn't laziness. It's drift. It's comfort. And that's the difficulty with it because we don't realize it, right? Um, you could talk about like a marriage relationship. You'll see this married couple and they will have slowly just kind of drifted apart and to be existing. And maybe they'll get divorced. And immediately what happens is that couple that could not invest in each other will suddenly go out and invest a whole lot of time in somebody else. And they'll get romantic and they'll have time for dates and they'll do all these things. And if they had done all those things 6 years
Yeah.
before, 5 years before, it would have fixed it. But they weren't intentional. And it's just a slow drift. And that's the danger of complacency is it's a slow drift toward comfort. And we love comfort and we despise discomfort. And so we lean toward it, but we don't realize that at the end of discomfort is a much better life.
Yeah, uh, I always look at too the brain, right? The brain's job is to predict and protect. So it tries to predict and protect us, and part of how it does that is it says, "No, no, stay here. This is comfortable. You know how this feels, right?" And like my painting behind me says, "Life is an adventure, nothing at all," and it's by Helen Keller, right? And so I always think about that, like, what's the adventure? And it's not from an adrenaline perspective, but more so when I can look at, and I think it's healthy to push the boundaries and be mindful. Like I'm afraid of heights, so I jumped out of an airplane. I go do this hike every year
For
where I have to
you.
walk up a graded staircase over like this train thing and go back down, and it takes my breath away, but it reminds my body that it's safe, right? Like it helps my body so that I can embody that feeling and then know when I'm faced with something that I have fear, which to me is just false evidence appearing real, that then I can move forward. And to your point, I'm always like, bring it on, because I know on the other side it's going to be pretty fabulous. Doesn't mean it's not scary at the time. So, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, what I'd really love to do, Marty, is talk about maybe some examples like what you were talking about. And I want to delve a little bit more in relationship because I see that a lot in clients as well. Like I help entrepreneurs, but where you show up one way, you show up everywhere. And so I want to talk a little bit more about some intentional times when you felt like you were complacent and maybe some tools to help people if they feel like they're in complacency, how to get out of that. So we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and talk about that. I want to pause for a moment because if you're listening to this, you know we were not meant to do this work alone. Build Her is the community I created for women who are building meaningful lives and businesses and want to grow without burnout, self-abandonment, or shrinking to fit. Inside Build Her, we gather monthly for real conversation, intentional teaching, and grounded connection with women who get it. This isn't about hustle, and it's not about fixing yourself. It's about being supported as you lead with clarity, confidence, and intention. So if you feel the pull towards a steady, honest, and expansive community, you're welcome here. Find the link in the show notes or join us at thelituplife.com/buildher. Okay, welcome back, everyone. And Marty, we were talking about complacency, and I want to touch on this because you said something I think really important. Complacency is not laziness, right? Like complacency, how I heard you say it, and so correct me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is really more about when we have fear or trepidation about moving forward into something. And so we want to stay kind of in that warm blanket because we at least know what this feels like where we're at, right? So, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say you were talking about being scared of heights. And what
Yeah.
happens if you don't do that hike
Mhm.
is you'll get more complacent about heights. You'll get more scared. And that is the beautiful thing about being intentional about facing that fear is you literally get to stuff it down a little bit. But if you don't, Debbie, your fear of heights will grow and grow and grow. And that's that's the scary thing about complacency. And that's why we have to fight it. That's why we have to kill it. And the kill is not a one and done.
Yeah.
It's all the time. Like
I
that
say to
sugar, that donut is always saying, eat me, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always say to clients that, you know what, our work is never done. Like you haven't arrived. Like the minute you think you've like gotten over something, it appears because every time you up level, every time you move into something that's new, it comes back just in a different way, right? Yeah. Yeah, and we have some tools sometimes to help with that. So we were talking about relationship, and I want to go into this a little bit, Marty, because thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable about you and your wife, because every marriage I think has some times, right? And I know, I am divorced. I was with somebody for 30 years. We raised our son together, and he's 33 and beautiful and wonderful. Eighth grade science teacher, like just I'm so proud of him. And but I look at that and I think about some complacency that potentially happens. There were a whole lot more things to that, but everyone goes through like some tough times. But I see that so much, Marty, where like when you have children, sometimes the focus is then on the children and you forget to have date nights. You forget to put energy into, like I was talking with one client and she just knew coming back from this trip how her husband was going to respond. And I'm like, what if you blew his mind away and did something different? Right? Why don't you walk in the door and instead of dropping your stuff and immediately going and hugging your kids, why don't you stop and drop your stuff and give him a hug and hang on to him for 10 to 20 seconds? Right? Like it completely changed the energy because I'm big on like everything is
Yes.
energy, right? And frequency. And so tell us a little bit about some other things that you've either seen in other people or that you've experienced when you have been complacent and how you got yourself out of that to become more mindful in what you're doing. Because it is I think about Pink Floyd. Now I come from the MTV era, but like that video where they're in the school, we don't need no, and everybody's in drab stuff, nobody's thinking for themselves. Like to me, that is like complacency, right? Like not moving, not leading a brilliant life. So enough on me. I want you to answer that question. Sorry.
Well, I would and I don't want to talk about anyone else here, but I'll
Yeah.
talk about myself. And
Okay.
what happened for me is I got busy shearing alpacas. I would go off for 2, 3 weeks at a time. And for me, it's the same old, same old. And I didn't, to be honest, Debbie, I didn't want to talk about my day because it was alpacas. Like, I mean, when you've done like 20,000 of them, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not that exciting. And so we would talk. I would call home once a every day, but we didn't really talk.
Mm.
And it just created this, um, it created, I don't know if I want to say a wall, but it created distance between us because we weren't connecting.
Yeah.
And my wife's name is Ginger. She wanted to connect, but I was hundreds of miles away. I wasn't engaged, and we just went through 6, 8 weeks of this. And
Yeah.
I came home, and she said, "Hey, can we go for a walk?" And it wasn't immediately. I don't want to be like I got out of the car and she's like,
Right.
"Let's go."
Right.
She probably fed me, and things were probably good for a little bit. And I don't know, but we went for a walk so that I would listen. And she said, "Hey, I'm done. Like I'm not going to keep doing this." And it was a good wake up call for me just to realize that I had been complacent. And this was before that word was really a big word to me.
Yeah.
But I needed to do something different. So yeah, we got super intentional about our wedding. I mean, about our marriage. We 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 started doing weekly date nights. We actually went off to a marriage conference, and that was good. I would advise anyone listening, like go to a marriage conference and realize that everything you think about your spouse is normal and all of their weaknesses and all of your weaknesses, like everybody has them. Get
Yeah.
in a room with people and laugh about it because we're all the same. And so that was really powerful. We started reading books together, but more than anything, we just started investing in each other and kind of fighting the drift that had occurred and trying to be more present. And I should say I can still fall into this passivity of I don't really need to share my day because it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I have the tools now to do these things, and it's really just asking about who you want to be and what you want your life to look like, and reverse engineering that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as you're talking, I do a lot of teaching in universal law, which to me is like for me, I talk spirit and universe, but for me, it's God. And so, like, it's very biblical in nature too, because the universal law of sacrifice basically says let go of the things that aren't serving you, aren't what your lane of genius is really, because we all have a role. And because when you do and you're doing those things, it blocks the ability to do the things that are in your lane of genius, right? So when I think about too, like in a relationship, it's like think about that relationship. And if you want to sacrifice it, then that can happen. But ultimately, when you've invested that much time and energy in someone, you're right. Most of the time, I see people go off and they actually find the same person, right? Like in a different form. And so, unless they do some intentional work on themselves too, right? So, like as you were talking, I was thinking about that law of sacrifice in the way that sometimes we have to look at what are we sacrificing that maybe we don't want to sacrifice, and it is that slow fade and we don't even realize it's happening until it happens. Yeah. So when you see people in complacency, what is some advice, tools, things that you would say to them? Like, here's how to notice you're in complacency, maybe even before it happens. Like, give us your process. Because I know you've written a book and I want you to talk a little about that
Yeah.
too. But
The process is, first of all, just be honest with yourself, identify it. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think everybody would agree they're complacent one area or another. And
absolutely.
if you don't think you are, just look at your screen time. Like
Yep.
two buttons and you can see what it was, and you can see where you spent a lot of your time. And I would argue, like I struggle with it. I don't have my phone in here, but my phone case says Kill Complacency because I struggle with it, and I can waste time there. And it's not, so that's what I would say. Be honest with yourself about it. And then to fix it, I would say write your obituary and think about who you want the world to know you as. What is it going to say? Is it going to say Debbie was intentional with her time and she poured into entrepreneurs, or it's going to say Debbie was the best person at some random video game on her phone? Like, I don't know if you do video games or anything. I'm just saying, like, be that person, reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
And if you want to be the person that gives away a lot of money, put yourself in a position where your business is going to make a lot of money so you can write the big check.
Right.
If you want to be known for having grandkids that you're intentional with and present for, then be that person to your kids, because you got to do it with your kids to have your grandkids.
Yeah.
So just reverse engineer it. Anything, fitness, finance. You want to be the fun person, like go out and be the fun person. Go give balloons to people and pop them. I don't know, whatever, but
Yeah. And Marty, you make me think of, like, I tell people that if everything else was like away, I would run around with a, like, spreading pixie dust of love. Like I would just be this little like fairy off saying like just love everybody, right? And so to that point, like if you can get to that point to understand like that deep core piece of who you are, like for me, I want to show up and love people. I don't always do that, right? Because I get caught up in these things. To me, that's complacency too, right? Because we're being complacent and not being in our lane, right? And I've just recently spent some time in a monastery in what was an abbey in California, working abbey, and we were studying an article called Big Data and Deep Data. So big data would be the AI that you and I were kind of talking a little bit about, and deep data was wisdom, right? And one of the questions, it said, "What's your 5%?" Like if we all just gave really intentional 5%, how much different the world would be versus trying to do 120% and not doing any of it well.
yeah, yeah. No,
And
that's
so,
powerful.
yeah. And so when I think about intentionality, like if you, like you wrote your book, tell us a little bit about the book, because I'm assuming it has to do with killing complacency and like being intentional. Like, are there some things that you would say that are helpful? Like some people like checklists, other people like, accountability partners or whatever that helps with that mindfulness. Is there anything that you would give to
All
them?
of it. I
Yeah.
think all of it. You have to measure however you, whatever works for
Yeah.
you. And I think the more tools you can use, the better. The book is called Kill Complacency, and it's all about intentionality. We talk about 7 F's: faith, family, fitness, finance, future self, which is just learning and growing.
Yeah.
Where am I at? Um,
I think that was
Friends and fun.
okay. Oh, I like that. And when is the book
And
coming out?
it'll probably be mid-May.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. So, and kind of, Debbie, I came up with these because I always set goals around these every year,
Hmm.
because I didn't want to just focus on finances or friends. I wanted to be a legacy person that was well-rounded. And
Yeah.
so annually we would set these goals around these 7 things. Honestly, it was only 6. when I wrote the book, I came up with fun because I struggle with it.
Yeah.
I love to work, but I know I need to rest. So fun came into the play with a book. But we seek to run our life through these 7 F's. And so that's what it's all about. Um, you asked, what was the other part of your question?
Just
Oh,
maybe
how to
some
track
tools.
it, how to track it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't care if you use an app, like set some goals. I don't know if you're big on goals, but
Yeah.
set the goal, reverse engineer it so you have daily actionable steps, and and then track it. If you don't track it, you're never going to know if you're going to hit it.
Yeah.
So track
That's
it.
so true. Yeah.
And I think accountability partners too. If you can get someone who will say, "Can I see your score last week?" Like
Yeah.
that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say I was more apt to show up at the corner in Kansas City to walk with my friend at 5:30 in the morning because I knew she'd be waiting for me.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it would get me out
And
of
she
bed
would
more
say the
time.
same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
Now,
if you didn't have each other, then you would have kept sleeping.
absolutely. And so, kind of on that realm, too, one of the things I've been kind of digging into recently is looking at this idea of what's a big, juicy goal, right? Because sometimes I'm like, ho hum, a goal for me feels very much like a task. Right. And so my big juicy goal now is because I'm an avid downhill skier and I live right at the base of a ski mountain, although we didn't ski much this year, but is to you get a free pass when you're 80. Like they just give you a free pass. And I want the free pass and not just the free pass, but I want to be able to ski before I have coffee with my friends. Right. So if I want to ski and I could say, oh, I want to spend time with my grandsons. Well, by the time I'm 80,
I want to hang
they're
around
going to
you.
be adults. And so I don't know what that feels like, but I know what it feels like to ski. So then I reverse engineered that to say, then what do I need to do today to make sure that I have a sound body to be able to do those things? And then created the tasks around that, right? Around my health, my mental health, because that brings me huge mental health,
Friends.
like friends, absolutely fun. All of those things then are leading to that piece. And so many times I think people get caught up in the, oh, I should have a goal that I want to spend time with my grandsons, or, oh, I should have this whatever. Go for the gusto. Like pick the thing that really lights you up because that will change your patterns. Then I have a friend who recently has been diagnosed with ADHD, and she's really come up with this thing where she's like, go to the micro habit, right? Like, not even Atomic Habits talks about stacking and doing that thing, but she's like, if you want to clean out your closet, have a celebratable win that you opened the closet door. Then you got a garbage bag to put things in that you're going to give away, right? Like celebrate the micro so that you don't get squirreled out and look at it like it's so big that you can't get it done.
Celebrate it. Because
Yeah.
my problem a lot of times is I don't celebrate. I
Yeah.
just go
We
on to the
intense
next.
people don't do that, Marty.
Debbie, I was thinking something that would make your goal more powerful
Yeah,
is if
please.
you had another friend that had the same goal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because then
Actually, there's a few.
you'd be comparing diet and
Yeah.
you'd be connecting and making sure you're both going to make it and you're both going to be there. And it would
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
so much fun then. Like, and maybe there's a whole group of you.
Yeah, there is a group here that it's called the Prime Timers and it's 55 plus and they all get together for social things and I kind of did that too because I know a lot of women and I hang out with a lot of women. So if I do want to date now 6 years after my divorce, I might need to go into some mixed company situations, right? So but yeah, to your point, that's a really good idea because then it has a little bit more excitement to it, a little bit more motivation to it. So yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. So you have the 5 or 6, 7 F's. That's going to be in your book. And I believe by the time this comes out, the book is already going to be out there. Is it going to be on Amazon or are you self-publishing?
Amazon. Yep.
Amazon.
Amazon.
Okay. Okay. We will put that in the show notes for everybody.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
Marty, I just want to say thank you for being on. There's so many different avenues we could dig into. I mean, this could be a 2 hour podcast, I kind of feel like,
Yes.
because there's a lot of different avenues that we could have gone in this, but we've just touched the surface. And so I always end. So other than your book, Kill Complacency, which go out and get your copy at Amazon, what book would you say is a book that has impacted you that you've maybe recently read and would share with people to say, go read this. It's a good one.
It's super hard because I have a lot of books I like.
Yeah.
But one book that is by Napoleon Hill. That it's not Think and Grow Rich, like that's his most famous one. But he wrote another book called Outwitting the Devil.
Ooh.
And it's kind of like Napoleon Hill has this podcast with Satan, and
Mm.
he asks Satan all these questions. And Debbie, the theology is terrible. So
Yeah.
don't judge me for the theology,
Okay.
but the message is really made me want to plant a flag on being intentional, because Satan in their talk, he uses the word drift,
Yeah.
but he talks about in the school, in the family, in the government, every every area of life. All he wants to do is get his people to drift a little bit, because he knows if he can get them to drift a little, he can get them to drift more.
Yeah.
And before long, they will lose their focus.
Yeah.
So that was a book I did 6, 7 years ago. I
Okay.
did it once since then, and then I started again last week, and it's really powerful.
Okay, I'll have to look at that. Thank you for sharing that. And then I think that's another thing we have in common. I have about 7 or 8 books going on right now, like at any
Yeah.
given time, right? I actually had a goal to read fiction last year because I read so many nonfiction that I thought I need to like switch it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But tell me, if we were to go out to your streaming platform, what would be either like your most played song, your life song, your like favorite song that you like to listen to?
So my favorite song of all time, I hope to have this at my funeral, is Jesus Loves Me.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's just a simple, powerful, if you read those words, we all sang it when we were little,
Yeah.
but if you read those words, it's powerful. And um sometimes at our church they'll ask for requests, and sometimes I'll request it. And everyone's kind of like, come on, Marty. But no, it really is my favorite song.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So, thank you again for being here. And, folks, we will have all of the information in the show notes. So, take a look at those if you want to get a hold of Marty. And, Marty, I will ask you, like, if someone does want to reach out to you, even though we'll have it in the show notes, where would you recommend that they go find you?
They can go to killcomplacency.com, or they can look me up at martyhoffman.com. Hoffman is one F, two N's.
Okay.
But and then any handle, that's my handle on social media, Marty Hofmann.
Perfect. And then he also has a podcast called Kill Complacency, so go take a listen to that one as well. So, folks, thank you so much for being here today. Do us a solid, and if you find that this would be helpful for someone else, share it with them. And with that, everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for being here and for choosing to spend your time in this conversation. If this work resonates with you, subscribe to the podcast and stay with us as we continue to explore what it means to lead, grow, and live with intention. Let's build your version of the lit up life. I'll see you in the next episode.